Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, the air layer on the Premna, or the air layers, I think might be done. As I've moved some things around down here in the plant room, I noticed a few things. There are a few little flying critters, but they don't seem to be ones that are going to be damaging anything, so that's good. It's super humid down here, been about 85 to sometimes 90 degrees, or 90% humidity, hovering around 80, 85 most of the day. And part of the reason for, I think, the explosion of growth in all the Premnas and the Portulacaria afras that I have down here, and some of the ficus, although most of my ficus are still outside. Yeah, but the growth I think is due because it came into the plant room. We have plenty of artificial light and there's no heat going on in my house right now. So without that forced dry heat, it's just about 75 degrees down here, a lot of light, and the fish tanks are going. I've watered the trees once or twice since they've been down here, so there's residual water on some of the boot trays, and it's kind of a tropical environment. So these Premnas have absolutely gone to town. Take a look at this air layer Premna, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but look what's happening right in front. I have a sucker growing right down here at the base that's 2 inches tall, and that's just since I brought it down into the plant room. So it's been an amazing growth spurt. So because the trees are healthy and growing and vibrant, I figured I could maybe do some work on them. But then I thought, maybe I shouldn't. But as I came down yesterday to take a peek at these as I was moving some things around, I noticed this little pot here was kind of split down here. So if I lift this up a little bit, the pot right here was a little split. So I thought I would take a closer look. And so as I took my glasses off and I spun it around and looked in there, I see a pile of roots in there. So let's do a reveal today. Before we dig in, let me tell you a little bit about the Premna, what I've learned so far. It is a pretty new species for me. Now the Japanese species, the Premna japonica, is a deciduous, while most of the other Premna species are evergreen. The tree we use for the workshops, the Premna microphylla. Some unique characteristics of the Premna: it's a great bonsai tree because of the natural small leaves. This tropical bonsai is used a lot in Thailand, the Philippines, Indonesia, and it grows very fast and will thicken up pretty quickly. The Premnas grow very strongly and produce a lot of roots. Therefore, they need much water and must not dry out completely. We're going to keep them slightly moist throughout the winter. Now, typically, we wouldn't repot any kind of tropical tree or ficus in October. But because of the health of this tree and that this air layer seems to have taken, I think I'm going to put it into a pot. And we've got this really, really warm environment. It's tropical-like. I'm keeping these indoors. We're going to never go below 60, 65 degrees. And in the daytime, 75 to 85. Plenty of humidity in my plant room. And so we'll get some life out of these. So the Premna, a really cool new tree for me. I'm super excited. And all of these little leaves on here have started to develop since this was cut back when I tried to salvage these trees. And so we're going to take a peek at this, and this is the reveal. I don't know if I should keep my glasses on or off for that. So if you notice, we even have some green right here. Look at that. There's green growing right up into this plastic. This one's right up here. So I know if I cut this tree and make two separate bonsai, I'm going to still keep the one in the pot, and we're going to grow that out and maybe repot that one today or some other day as well. But we first are going to go into this guy right here, and we're going to see how much growth we might have. My maple air layers did not work this year, so I was kind of bummed. I did that maple air layer on my great big Japanese maple that I believe is grafted to another variety, because they sold it in a Minnesota nursery here in my neck of the woods, and people would probably buy them and put them in the ground. So I'm sure they must have been grafted with a variety that could handle the cold. And so I'm not sure why it didn't take though. Who knows with air layers? Sometimes you have success, sometimes you don't. As I've been spinning this pot around, I know this is a twin trunk right here. This could become a new twin trunks tree. So if these two come off as bonsai and then I have this one, I turned one tree into 3 trees. This was a twin trunk to begin with. Say that fast 3 times. Here we go. It's the reveal. So the pot is off. And look at all those roots down there. All of those roots are wrapping around the pot right there. There's some roots in there all the way around. Look at the nice roots on this tree right here. So we have success. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my big concave cutter and see if my concave cutter is thick enough to get this cut off right here. So here we go. And here we have it. So there's the bottom of our tree. There's the kind of now tap root. And if I can peel back some of the trunk a little, or the roots a little bit. Ooh, there. There, I cut it back some more. So this is a big pile of sphagnum moss, and look at the root growth on that. So this was an air layer that I did probably in, I have to look at my record, see if I kept record of this. So what had happened was some of the trees were being kept at one of the MBS members' house, and he noticed some critter chew at the bottom of a lot of the trees, the Premnas. And there were about 7, 8, 9 trees that got attacked. So he was feeling a little bit nervous about his yard and didn't know what was causing it exactly. So he said, hey Dave, you might want to come pick these back up. So I did, and some of them were girdled almost all the way around the trunks. So I tried to do a little bit of air layering on about 3 or 4 of the trees to hope to save them and create new trees. So now I have a whole new bonsai tree right here in the future with this right there. The sphagnum moss seems a little bit dry in the center there. All right. So there's one side of the air layer. So if this one is this thick, I'm assuming the other one was this thick. And if these are this thick, I'm sure the other trees, I air layered them all at the same time, might potentially be this thick. Now I don't want to monkey with these roots too much because I don't want to break them off, but there are a lot of them, and that just looks really, really nice. So let's see if I can tease just a little bit of this away. So I've got some sphagnum moss on top that I can kind of slowly peel away. Oh, and I see roots right there as high as right there. So some of the roots start right here. Very nice. We want that radial root pattern. Some nice roots coming out right there. Oh, and right there. And so these roots just grew straight down and then started to come down in here and then spread around this little tiny pot. So as I get rid of some of this sphagnum moss, we can kind of see these new young roots. Oh, there's a nice one right there. There's actually 3 or 4 growing right from there. We'll want to separate some of those probably on year 2 next year. But my main goal right here is to just tease this around a little bit, and then we're going to throw this thing into a pot. I don't want to mess with the middle of this too much. We'll get this in a pot. We'll flatten it out a little bit. There we go. Getting some of the sphagnum moss out. I think I can cut a little bit more of the trunk away. And then it's okay to leave the sphagnum moss in here because it's just going to help with the moisture. And again, these Premnas, as my research has shown, I don't have a lot of long growing here to give you some narratives from my experience. But the research is saying that they're going to like a lot of water. We don't want to get them too dry. So I'm going to go ahead and pluck out a little bit more of that trunk. So right there is the trunk. See if I can do this without hitting my eye or the camera. Oop, there it goes. All right, sweet. Okay. So I can see a little bit the early startings of a radial root pattern on here. So right here, we've got some roots growing left and right. All around here, some nice radial root pattern. I can lay these out a little bit, get them a little bit flatter, put them in a pot, and we'll be good to go. This pot comes with some pre-holes here that are screened, but there's really big holes underneath where you can put wire on here to tie this down. These are going to be in the comfort of my home for most of this winter, all of this winter. What am I talking about? All of this winter, so it's not going to go anywhere, right? I'm not going to tie this one down. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in there. So I'm going to get my tape, my sheetrock tape. I'm going to cut 2 little skinny strips, and we're going to plug those holes on the sides. And those sides are actually going to act as extra drainage holes, but the main drainage holes are in the center of the pot going right straight down. And so these, this bit of sheetrock tape will not hinder the draining of those areas either. Get some of our soil in there, and then we're going to lay this guy in here. I might have to put some rocks in here to hold it down. So there we can see the root flare. If I try not to damage too much of the roots there, maybe put this thing at an angle a little bit. And then we're just going to go ahead and get some roots on there, or some soil in there. Yeah, I think we're going to add a rock on here just to keep it down here and keep some pressure right there on that. But not too bad. Let's give it a little bit more water right away off the bat here. We're not going to cut any leaves off of here, I don't think. We've got lots of roots down there. It's going to be supported by leaves up on top. A real nice humid environment, like we said. So, see if we have any water coming out that bottom yet. A few drips coming out now. So this mix for this variety, I do have a third, a third, a third. So this is a third pumice, a third akadama, and a third lava rocks. Now we're getting some more puddles here developing. So that's good for right now. And then I'll have to see what kind of heavy rocks I have in my fish tank area. I might want to push this down a little bit. So the risk I run with not wiring it down is having air pockets in there. So I'm going to for sure make sure I get the soil kind of tamped in there a little bit. So I have some rocks here. There we go. Okay, so the rocks are going to keep this tree from being knocked over if I bump it. I don't want to get too much movement in there. So the rocks will give it some weight. Of course, it is indoors. It's going to be indoors all winter long now. And then sometimes the rocks too will hold more moisture in because, you know, it's not going to dry out as much because the rock on top will dry out, but it'll hold in some of the moisture down below it. So I'm giving it a good old soaking with my wand. All right. So there we have a new bonsai tree in the future. So you see there was a pretty big chop here. Got a nice low branch coming over this way and then this coming up here. This low guy here, we're just going to keep it for life right now and thicken up the trunk. It might come off someday. Right now it's right at the soil level. There's even some leaves right down at the base that might grow up some more too. But we just want this thing to grow. We want it to survive in the winter and survive this really strange time of year. So that's the one side of the tree. Let's see if we can find the same results on the other side of the tree. So here we are, reveal part 2. All right. Now you should never assume, but of course the other one grew so well and this is attached to the same tree, you would like to think there's going to be roots on this one as well. And I already see a root right there. You see that root sticking out? The pot spread out a little bit. There are roots on here. It's probably going to be just as healthy. So here comes reveal number 2. Don't want to damage the roots. Oh. Look what we're finding. Are we finding roots on the second one? We absolutely are finding roots all around the second one. Look at all those roots. Now, if you'll notice, there's more roots down at the bottom side here of the air layer. And that's because the pot was at an angle. So all the moisture went down here and it probably dried out a little bit more here. It struggled to get those roots. So whenever you do an air layer, you want to make sure you have it as best as possible. If you can have it more up and down or any way you want the roots to grow, they're going to grow more down, radial pattern around if it's this way. Because this pot stood this way, the air layer pot was at an angle, so all the heavy root production is actually down here. And it was the same with the other one that I cut off. So let's go ahead now and cut this guy off. Right about up here. Okay, and we'll put this aside for a little bit later. And we have another bonsai tree, which has a nice little move in the trunk right there. Look at the movement right here from your right to left, or my left to right. Yep, your right to left. A little movement here, then it bends up this way, and then we got this branch over here. So there's already some slight movement on that tree. Look at that, planted at an angle right there. And then we get maybe this is the new leader. Cut this one off, and just clean up this right here, and we've got an angled tree. All right, let us pull away this bit of sphagnum moss. Growing right there and there. So we have a root there, a root below it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a lot of roots in there. This is super exciting when you see results like this. My maple, it was a little bit of a bummer, but you win some, you lose some, you keep trying. Now I've learned through my trial and error that the Premna in the middle of summer or in August will do a really good job of having an air layer done. And of course, with our tropical trees, our ficuses and tropical trees, we like to do most of our work in Minnesota in July and August because that's when it's warm, we've got humidity, and all our trees are going to do really, really well that time of year. So I got some sphagnum moss that's just kind of falling out here at the bottom as I pluck away just a little bit. Again, I don't want to damage the roots too much. We're going to want to spread those out in the pot. And as you can see, I've got some more little bit of the trunk right there that I can lop right off. And there we have another tree with a nice little base of roots that we can spread out and lay in our, look at that spread for a brand new, this is 2 months of growth, you guys, 2 months of growth. And get some soil into. We're gonna have to get some more rocks. So again, this has kind of a little bit of a wound on this side right here. So that's part of maybe where the critters were getting at it too. But we've got some branches a couple inches up. We're gonna find this little spot here that we like. Spread out the roots a little bit. Get it off center just a little bit. Why not? Gonna settle those rocks in a little bit. Now, we laid it down pretty flat. There's not a lot of, but we'll go ahead and give it a spray down real quick. All right, so I got some relatively flat rocks here. And there we go. We'll give it some more water, because I wasn't running out the bottom yet. Now again, I'll repeat, if you're just joining in late or fast forwarded to this part, these will sit in my plant room with humidity about 85 to 90 because my forced air heat hasn't started yet. The heater, the furnace, we haven't started heating our home yet because it's been such a mild fall. We have almost 12 degrees above normal as of the first 10 days of October. 11.9 degrees above normal. So it's been super, super warm. The heat doesn't kick in. You don't get that forced dry heat until later in the winter then. So it makes my plant room super, super humid and ready for some tropical plants, which these are, of course, tropical plants. So we have our second little planting here. We planted a little bit at an angle. We've got some tree branches that are kind of really low, kind of hunkering down there. We're just going to leave those again because I want this to grow. I don't want to create a lot of stress on this tree. We got a lot of leggy growth right here from this plant room. Again, since it's been in the plant room, it's doubled in size, these leaves right here, these branches. A little bit leggy. If I get them a little closer to the lights, we'll get a little bit less leggy growth, but down here in the plant room, I just want them to survive. So there is tree number 2. So we today were able to take the twin trunk that the critters chewed around the bottom, and we were able to air layer them, and in about 2 months, maybe a little less than 2 months, because this was probably August, September, in these air layering pots is what I'm trying to say. And so they've been in there for about 2 months, lots and lots of roots, and now they're going to be down here in the plant room. Very, very nice. Super fun. 2 more trees, potentially as trees we can have some MBS members work on. Might be able to sell them to recoup some of our costs, because these were trees that were for the workshop, and so a lot of times people will buy leftover trees, and in this case we got 2 out of 1, so we can give them a half price deal and they can still have a nice tree to work on, and everything, everybody wins. It's kind of a win-win situation. So there are the 2 Premnas repotted. I want to show you something real quick. At the last workshop in September, this was September the 18th and 19th, so only a couple of weeks back, I had a whole bunch of cuttings from our workshop, and this was one of them. And when I was moving pots to put the new ones I just made away, I knocked this over and I went, oh no, this is one of my new cuttings. But I wanted to show you the new cutting after 3 weeks. So there's the cutting after 3 weeks. And look at the growth. Look at the roots right there. We've got about 2, 4, 6, 8 roots coming out of that little cutting. I'm going to put it back in the soil gently, and we'll get another tree out of this. And look at the nice curve on that branch. We might get a real nice piece of movement on this one. So we'll put it back in there real gently, cover it up with some more soil, and we'll put it back on the workbench. Okay, I'm so excited that we're going to go ahead and try another Premna tree. And here's why. Look at the growth on this Premna at the base. Right here. We've got a branch that's thicker than this branch up here since it's been in the plant room. And it's up to here about 5-6 inches away from the bottom of this tree. It is growing like gangbusters. So we're like in the middle of a tropical July, August where this thing is growing. So the air layer should have taken really, really nicely as well. With the warm weather we had, the other ones were successful. Let's see how successful this one was. And if I don't feel the roots are where they need to be, I can always put it back together. We're gonna try not to break this one. This is gonna be very gentle. This one right here is gonna be very sensitive because it's green, solid green all the way down to the trunk of this tree. Try to be careful not to break that one off. There we go. Okay, so the plastic is off. And the cut is over here. I'm gonna be careful not to break this one though, so that's gonna be a little trickier. Let's do the reveal here. I don't want to break that one off. I see roots growing out of the bottom, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this pot away. I don't want to use my good scissors, so I'm going to go ahead and use this one. Okay. Okay. All right. So that's one side. Let me see if I can get this cut down here a little bit. Ooh, I see some roots. So I don't see as many roots as the other trees, but there's definitely roots down at the bottom. So see if I can pull this away. Oh yeah, wait till I reveal the other side, everybody. Okay, remember I talked about in the other tree, if it's slightly at an angle, you're gonna have more growth. Look at the angle of this sphagnum moss here. It's a little bit this way, tilted, and a little bit back this way. So look at the back side where all the roots are. All the roots are on that side. A beautiful sight to see all of these roots. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this tree right down to there. Then we cut it off. Okay. So there's a new tree. Right there, a brand new tree growing from the trunk down low. So we'll see what happens with this over time. We have a whole bunch of roots going down this way. Something could grow over here too. But we have this new tree growing in here. Right now it looks really, really not like a tree at all, right? And really, really an odd shape. This root right here, we're just gonna cut right off. All right. We got a root sticking up here. We'll just snip that right there. And we're just gonna leave this. We're gonna leave this alone and just see what happens to this. Will we get another sucker up here for a clump style, a twin trunk? This become a new tree that just grew out of a stump from the ground? Maybe we can put a rock over that, underneath it, who knows, to hide some of the structure. But there's another bonsai that does not have to die quite yet. Oh, and a reminder, this was what was left of our other one, our twin trunk. We've got a tree growing right there, and we have a tree growing right there. We don't even need these trunks anymore. So this is where the critters ate all the way around the tree. There's another tree cut. Look at that. I just unburied a new tree that wanted to come up right there. Look at that. So we are going to have a multi-trunk tree from the base of an old tree. I have a tree like this growing up at the cabin. We have a couple of oak trees that are trying to grow, and it's always where we put our dock in, so it keeps getting run over. But it wants to grow a new tree right around the old trunk, just like that. So we might have a clump style tree out of this someday, and we've got 4 trees. We got 4 or 5 growing from right there. So that'll be fun to see what happens. But now what are we going to do with this one? Boy, our air layer is fun when they work. Huh? Okay, so we're going to move the sphagnum moss off gently, and look at that, even way up here. Look at the roots right there. There's 3 of them right there. And as I peel away gently, there's more. Now that one, I just took a root right off right there because I wasn't gentle enough. Be very careful when you're peeling this sphagnum moss away. We can keep the sphagnum moss. We can just put it in a pot and let it go a little bit longer. I don't have to be this aggressive if I don't want to. But one of the reasons why I can be aggressive is because we know how prolific this is to send out roots with this sphagnum moss and keeping it nice and wet. So look at that long growth of roots. Look at that fantastic growth. Look at all that right there, way up here on this branch. So I knew these branches were potential survivors, and they put out some new growth as well. So who knows what this tree will look like down the road, but we have growth. And we don't need all of this sphagnum moss, so we'll take some out here. Got some big long roots in here. So I will separate the roots from the trunk a little bit at the bottom here to see where we get the trunk. And we can go, look at how high we can go. So we can cut this trunk way down here. Okay, we're gonna watch out not to get hit here. There we go. Didn't quite get all of it. And there we go. And we took off another inch. So we're going to go ahead and pluck away some more of this sphagnum moss. Not ripping off the roots, but just trying to get rid of some of the sphagnum moss there. There we go. So look at all those roots that I can lay down into a flat radial pattern like this. And then we'll have some more root work the next time we repot the tree, which won't be next summer, although with the way these roots are growing and the way the research says prolific root growth, I bet you we could repot this in July or August next year, and we're going to see a lot of roots that we could go ahead and have a repot that'll be just fine and dandy. All right, so we have our tree right there. And we can spread out. We got some high roots in here that we can cut off. Right now we have the original trunk that has some roots on it. We have this new trunk over here, which makes it kind of a twin trunk, and lots of growth here. Spread out these roots. So these roots grew everywhere off of the twin branches up top and the main trunk down at the bottom. And this could become a really interesting tree one day. And I'm going to cut this piece off. There's branches right below it. I'm going to cut this one shorter, and we're going to put this in a pot. So you can see the real curve of this trunk right here. I cut it so it'd be a nice big swooping trunk, and so this could become the new main branch there. There is one in the back that we might just cut off, but we're going to go ahead and lay this in there. Tuck it down in the bonsai soil, and if you can look in there, look at how nice and radial that is all the way around. We've got roots going almost all the way around. We're a little weaker on this side over here, but a lot of roots. So because these really like water, if I wanted to do justice for these trees and spend a little more money, what I would do is I would put a little bit more akadama in this pot instead of a third lava, a third pumice, and a third akadama. I could put maybe 50% akadama in here so it retains its moisture better. The akadama is going to be a soil that retains a lot more moisture. Pumice will hold the next amount of moisture, and the lava rock the least amount of moisture. But I'm okay in my plant room because I have a lot of really good control over the heat and humidity of this room. So it's going to have lots of moisture, so I'm not going to be too worried about the soil mixture for this right here. And I'm pretty low on akadama, as is most of the country. And so I'm using it sparingly on some of my bigger and better trees. This is a very young tree in development. The little bit of akadama in here, a third, plus the lava rock and the pumice will be just fine for this guy moving forward. So we're going to get some water in here to get that initial squirt in there, and then I will find a couple more rocks. We'll hold this down with some rocks, Again, we don't have to really worry about wind down in the plant room or anything. And thank goodness they're down in the plant room. I don't have to worry about critters anymore because they stay out of my house. So I'm gonna make sure I tamp down some of this soil a little bit. Get those finer particles to hug in there between the roots. And there's a nice little hole. Yeah, get those rocks in there. Underneath this thick trunk part. There we go. Time to find some more rocks. All right, so I have this really heavy duty rock. That'll sure hold it down. I think that rock might be a little too big. I want to make sure the water gets underneath that rock too, so I don't want a big dry patch in there. This one's a little bit smaller. There we go. Now I know the water can get through all the nooks and crannies. So this tree will be kind of a mystery. What is it going to look like 1 year down the road, 3, 5 years down the road? Who knows? But I'm super excited that a tree that I thought was maybe going to be lost because I didn't know much about the Premna coming in this year, and now I'm learning more and more about them. And I love the fact that they root so strongly. And now that I know that they need to have a nice warm climate inside, this is a good candidate for a lot of Minnesota bonsai enthusiasts because they can keep it inside in their apartments and not have to worry about having a cold frame, and you can have a nice tree that's going to do some really good blooming. I'm going to cut this back tree off right here. I should say branch, not tree, right? Yeah, that one was just going down in a really weird way. This one doesn't have any growth on it at the moment. I'm just going to trim that off. So we've got some new growth right there, a couple of inches. This one's growing wild. So this is a very gnarly looking tree, but all we're doing right now is keeping it alive. The air layer was successful. The tree's in some new soil. We've got a little more water to go. So there is tree number 3. I'm gonna stop right there. That's enough work for one night. I could go on forever. I got about 3 more trees that have air layers on them, but let's stop right there. A fun night of keeping the trees alive, doing everything we can. Keeping them in a warm climate in the very tropical plant room right now, and we'll give them some tender love and care and make them get big and strong. Oh, that was great. Hey, click like. Tell your friends to subscribe if they haven't already. Check out the channel. I appreciate everybody's comments and questions of late. It's been super nice, super fun. Can't wait to make a lot more videos. I got a lot more stuff to do here in the fall and as we head into late fall, so stay tuned. Hey, take care of you, and everybody take care of your bonsai, and we'll catch you really soon.